Hey everyone, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. I am the cult survivor, Justin.
I'm Nico, the sleeper cultist who then, later, kills Justin.
I'm Dan, the disciple.
Mr. Ishard Powell, the mastermind behind the whole thing. What's up? Ishwalker.
Oh.
And we have a special guest here today. It is, of course, friend of the podcast, Ish. He's actually the one who introduced us to this movie, a couple years back. So he's going to join us on this ride. But we are reviewing The Void today. So it was written and directed by Stephen Kostanski and Jeremy Gillespie. We've got Aaron Poole as Daniel the cop. We have Kenneth Welsh as Dr. Powell. He's evil as fuck. We've got Kathleen Monroe as Allison, Ellen Wong as Kim, and last we have Mike Biscoff as Sean. He's often identified as the son, but his name is actually Sean in the movie. So this movie opens up with a father and son duo, Vincent and Sean, and literally in the opening 5 minutes, right, Dan? They set a woman on fire.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking brutal.
30 seconds, maybe.
And literally, so one person though, and they're walking out of this house, and they've clearly been killing people in the house. One guy, Jason, escapes. Now he's later found by Daniel, who's a cop, and he takes him to basically the local hospital. So while they're at the hospital, Ish, what happens?
Like, they go in, everybody's chilling, they're trying to get this guy situated. They leave for a little bit. One nurse just loses her shit, and she cuts her skin off of like her face, and then attacks one of the patients. And then Daniel shoots her, because why wouldn't you do that in that situation?
Yeah.
He goes outside to radio it in, because again, why wouldn't you do that in that situation? And he's attacked by one of the cultists who have now started to like... So as he gets attacked, I don't know what he does. I don't know if he kills that person or not, but he runs right back into the hospital. And then he like passes out.
What happens, Nico, after that?
Right, so the father-son duo that we saw earlier break past the cultists and they get into the hospital where everyone else is in pursuit of Jason, the guy who escaped. They have a very tense standoff with Daniel, but it's cut short when the nurse who Daniel shot comes back as some sort of eldritch abomination, the likes of which you have never seen before. And neither have they. Daniel, Vincent, and Sean proceed to destroy it after quite a bit of struggle, though.
And unfortunately, things just go from bad to worse. Ish, what follows after that?
Dude, like a lot happens, man. Jason stabs one of the doctors, Dr. Powell. One of the patients of the hospital goes into labor. Daniel, Vincent, and Sean run outside to get Daniel's shotgun. And while outside, the three see that they're surrounded by all these cultists. There's so many of them, and it's very creepy. And then after that, they run inside, so...
Yeah. So after they dip back inside, Dan, there's actually like a little side plot, right? Because one of the nurses is actually Daniel's, get it, Dan? Daniel's wife.
Are you shitting me right now?
So what goes down with that?
Yeah, so she needs to go get some medicine for the pregnant patient. So she decides to go off on her own, even though Daniel told her, don't go yet. I'm going to come with you in a little bit after I get the shotgun. She decides to go on her own to go get this medicine. And she ends up being kidnapped by Dr. Powell, who we thought was dead, but turns out he's not actually dead. So he takes her to the basement. So our trio of heroes, that would be Daniel and the father and son, grab their weapons and they take Jason as well, and they go down into the basement. So once they get to the basement, things start to get really weird, and they kind of find a sub-basement that isn't really supposed to be there. It's like a basement underneath the basement. So they go down there and sort of like reality is all kind of like different, and they run into a whole like room full of just abomination, like these experiments that Dr. Powell had performed on people, and they're all like deformed and they come back to life and just start attacking them. And it's kind of like interjected with different scenes from these four characters past. So we see like flashbacks of Daniel and I believe Daniel and Allison with the father, son, and their mom, I think, right?
Yeah, their mom definitely shows up as a ghost.
So we see like a few kind of flashbacks and sort of in between all these like crazy, really ridiculously crazy abominations that are attacking them.
And Nico, while Daniel's down there, he actually runs into his wife. So what's good with that scene?
Right, so we have our lovers reunion, but Dr. Powell has done something to her. Unfortunately, we have poor Allison, who is now the host of an abomination that Dr. Powell has planted within her, exactly how you think. And there's tentacles coming everywhere, and there's all types of gore and just awful, and it's pretty fucking visceral. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of Akira, but we can maybe talk about that later. And so Daniel, doing what I guess you could consider an act of mercy, he, in one of the most, I think, haunting scenes of the movie, takes an axe to her and chops her up as the camera pans back and we see the blood splatter. It's just so fucking good. I'm okay. And then he finds Dr. Powell at the bottom of the basement in this sort of, I want to say it's almost like an altar room in front of a portal to another dimension. And the doctor explains how he has been blessed by these beings beyond time, presumably like some elder gods or some eldritch beings or some shit, something the cultists are worshiping. And then the pregnant patient shows up and births an abomination that then chases off everybody. And Vincent and Sean manage to fight off the abomination at the cost of, unfortunately, Vincent's life.
Right. And the movie kind of concludes half happy, kind of, and half kind of what's going to happen here. So first off, Sean, after kind of burning the creature, still has to run away because the creature actually doesn't die. But luckily, Sean still manages to escape, and he finds the only other surviving nurse, who's Kim. And the two of them, they're super happy and relieved to find each other, and they make it past the nightmare. The sun rises, and they'll be okay. However, it's a little bit different for Daniel. So back in the depths of the hospital, Daniel tackles, Dr. Powell through the kind of portal into the other dimension. And the movie closes with him holding Allison's hand, the same Allison who he chopped up, holding her hand, and she's perfectly back to normal. And they're standing kind of in like a really dark, shadowy, cloudy, almost like, kind of shadow realm or something like that. And they're looking up at a giant black pyramid or dark, shadowy pyramid. And that's how the movie closes. So we're kind of left with a little bit of, no one really knows what happens to Daniel and Allison. Did they both die and now they're in existence in this other dimension? We'll find out.
Damn,
but
Daniel.
Before we get to that, we'll go ahead and start off with the visuals and audio. So we're going to call in Ish back into the mix. So Ish, what did you think of the way this movie looked? Were you a fan of the cinematography and just, how this looked in general?
I really, really liked the look of this movie. I think it was like just dark enough. You know what I mean? The lighting was really good everywhere, which is key with the kind of effects they were using.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And everything looked, I guess whenever you're like doing recording and stuff, you want to sound crisp, everything looked crisp. I like the mood you're setting for me. I like the lighting that you're setting for me here. I love the way that the portals looked in the basement. All of those scenes in like their altar and everything like that looked amazing. And again, to the darkness, like they had just enough light to where like they even had the reveal of the different abominations all around the room. When they came out of the darkness, I was like, wow, you guys played it up so nice. I mean, the light, like the red light, like showing like perfect off these people's faces as they like sit out to like try and grab the people. I don't know. I loved it.
True. And you also, Ish, when we were kind of going over some pre-production stuff, you talked about the movie posters. What'd you think of those?
Oh my gosh. Like the artwork on those, again, amazing. What was it? They just had, it's very simple. Like a lot of it looked pretty simplistic. I know I saw one on Amazon and stuff that was a white background with a black triangle and the tentacles kind of coming out. But the main one is like the all dark black background with the black tentacles coming out of the light, which again, just looked like fantastic. Very cosmic, very all that. I love that type of artwork. But it also looked like an old movie poster, which I really liked. That it was like kind of like a good little nod. You could see that movie poster on the face of a VCR, like, you see what I'm saying? And like be like, all right, cool.
So we're going to go ahead and jump over to Dan. Dan, did you have anything to add in terms of visuals here? Because I know that, to Ish's point, they were pretty crisp.
Yeah, I mean, they're just amazing. Like I think I totally agree with Ish, and like the juxtaposition, I think, of the light and the darkness was really cool. The movie is very dark, but like all the cultists, when you do see them, they're wearing all white, except there's just like the symbol of the cult is just a black triangle. So there's just like a black triangle on their cloth garb, whatever. Or even like in the altar room when the portal is open, the portal is just this emitting this bright white light, but the rest of everything is dark. It's just a really cool juxtaposition of the darkness that the rest of the film is kind of set in. Even when they're in a well-lit room, like in the main hospital area, it's still sort of, I mean, the lighting inside of it isn't dim, but the color grading on the film makes it seem a little.
It's less saturated.
Yeah.
It's faded, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, faded. So when we get to that big portal area, that juxtaposition of all that bright light is really cool. The visuals on this movie were just incredible.
Agreed. And Nico, I do have to warn you ahead of time. Dan's apparently read up on his SAT words with interjected and juxtaposition. So
I heard it and I was like, oh my God, he's amazing.
Big words.
So Nico, I'm going to have to ask you now, is there anything that maybe someone hasn't mentioned that you liked about the visuals?
I fucking love the color grading in this movie. It's just like Ish mentioned perhaps the scene where it was best done, where they're in the sub basement area where there's this ritualistic circle on the floor and all these abominations start walking towards people and the red light is flashing everywhere. It's just so well done. It's not you would think that it would look like some old video game from the 90s, but it still manages to look crisp, clear, and terrifying. The only other thing I will say is just that even in the scenes that are more, I guess you could say, like demure or domestic, when they're in the hospital, there is a lot of variety of color in the costume design. And even though we have this sort of faded aesthetic showing the strain that everyone's under, it did still pop for me. And I really liked that they had that level of attention to detail.
Okay, so let's go ahead now and switch gears over to audio. So, I'm going to lead here by saying I like the audio in this movie quite a bit. I thought that, especially like the creature sounds were awesome. I thought, the soundtrack was mostly comprised of, kind of lower synth sounds that more kind of sat there. There were a couple times where it didn't. But again, to some points that Nico's made in earlier podcasts, if you didn't really think about it too much, you wouldn't catch a lot of the soundtrack.
Exactly.
It was really down there. But I'm going to go ahead and concede to the expert in the virtual room. Dan, what'd you think about this audio?
I mean, I thought it was great. And this is where maybe I'm failing as the expert a little bit here, but I don't really have too much to comment on because, it just fit. I mean, nothing really stood out to me in a good way. It just really accentuated the film. And I mean, like Justin had mentioned with the sound effects that the monsters were making and everything like that, it all sat very well in the mix, as well as the sound effects sounded like, yes, this is what the monsters would actually sound like.
Yes.
I think. It makes sense, So I thought it was really well done.
Agreed. Ish, you have anything that, to add on to what Dan said, or you pretty much agree with what he was coming with?
I do. I agree with everything he says. I did want to add that baby, at the end, that baby screech sound was, the first time I saw this movie, I was not thinking too much about the movie. A lot of other stuff was going on, but I would pop back in, and I popped back into that baby screech sound, and it was jarring, bro. I watched this movie again yesterday, and same thing. As soon as you hear that baby screech thing that gets morphed into this long wail, oh my God, man. No, the sound direction was amazing. It was great. Oh, I also I know it's little things, but I like whenever movies or shows kind of have that I don't know, it feels maybe an absence of sound or whatever, because there's always white noisy kind of stuff, but then they have a burst of no sound. Whenever it was the floating creature in the basement, whenever it would pop in and pop out, you know what I mean? I love that. That was a really cool thing for me visually and auditorily.
So, Nico, I'm actually going to ask you something separate now. So,
okay.
Practical effects, right? We cannot talk about The Void without talking about some of these practical effects. Because, first off, no CGI here. This was, for the most part, obviously they didn't actually build
they didn't have a
giant
fucking
pyramid.
portal.
Yeah, they didn't actually have that. You got me there. But in terms of the, all the monsters and the blood and the gore, it's all practical effects.
Yeah.
So, Nico, go ahead and tell me what I already know. Preach to the choir. How good was it?
It's funny that you transitioned here, because the first thing I'm going to say about the practical effects is, in fact, the audio.
Oh.
The audio for the practical effects, when you think about horror movies, there's a lot of stuff that is added in post in terms of cliche things like, the Wilhelm scream or something, or, sound of a heartbeat or something. But what was more horrifying than fucking anything more than any of those tropes within the genre is just hearing the sounds of like these axes impacting these suits that, you know, someone's fucking wearing. It sounds like these monsters are shooting tendrils into the people, into the poor victims. It sounds like they have like 11 million vocal cords and that they're made of, you know, this hulking massive muscle, and you can hear their footsteps actually like physically in relation to where they are in the room, and that's just so fucking well done. And I haven't really seen something of that level of, you know, practical effects in terms of just really making them pop since, honestly, Alien. I fucking adore the practical effects here.
All right, Ish, I know Nico commented on, you know, some of the audio stuff, but in terms of the, I guess, the costume designs and some of that other stuff, how'd you feel about the practical effects there?
Pretty sick. I don't know if it's the best, but I did love the main villain's ending kind of transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and discuss what he looks like.
He's like dude, I don't know, man. If you imagine, if you know, like Red Skull from Marvel Comics, if like his whole body kind of looked like that, it's just kind of like one of the, like that, like the he looks flayed because he's cut off all his skin, but it's also jet black at the end. And that was like,
yeah, it looks like Onyx.
Looked beautiful. It looked amazing, dude. Every single scene with him in it at the end, he looks like a White Walker, just like spray painted black. I guess it's great. Not just that, like the monsters themselves looked
so good,
because they'd have like parts where it's supposed to be bone, you know what I mean, and like you could see like the density of the material. Versus like, you know, their slimy, like bulging kind of organs like coming out of their body and stuff. And again, with practical effects, it's made to look real. You know what I mean? It's a physical thing that people can interact with. So I love that adds like the realism of like, because you're supposed to be put into this movie, right? You're supposed to be sucked into the movie into like, they're trying to sell it to you like, hey, this is happening here in this world. You know what I mean? And it feels more like we're able to go into that world whenever everything is actually physically there.
That's a good way of putting it. That's actually a good way of putting it.
It's really immersive.
One thing I was thinking during the movie was like, because I knew that these were all practical effects going in and everything. I was just thinking, man, especially that basement scene when there's like so many of these abominations.
God.
I was like, how do they make it seem so real? Because I mean, obviously, yes, they're real things, but even on top of that, like making them move realistically and everything, I'm sure is difficult. And I realized that like there are a good amount of cuts of like scene cuts and everything. And I don't mean this in a bad way because I like how they did it. It adds to the frantic nature and everything, but I'm sure that helps too. So like you don't have to have this giant monster that's probably can't actually move fluidly. It doesn't have to move super fluidly because you're cutting enough that you only have to see it move for 2 seconds and then it cuts or whatever. Dude, that basement scene was just incredible. Like it looks so real.
And to add on to what you're saying, that played into the lighting as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Even down to like the lighting of like the shotgun's flashlight, that even like utilizing that, you know what I mean? Or at least simulating that onto these prosthetics. Like it makes it look so that if it's low light, right, it's obvious, it's easier to make something pass as something it's not really supposed to be. So they do play with the light. They do keep the monsters in pretty low light. But I like that they're able to still let them venture out into the open for the people to actually see and be terrified of before they like bring them back again. Because they want you to get a glimpse of it. Like, hey, this is it. We got real monsters here.
I will say I'm in love with these practical effects, but for me, probably the scene where I knew I was in love with them was when they first head down again to the basement, because that's where a lot of action takes place. There's one of the creatures, and the doctor actually, he's explaining to Allison, he says, they want to die. And there's a little plot thread about how the hospital had a fire and most of it got burned down. And he was like, yeah, that was the creatures trying to die, but I won't let them die. And there's actually a scene immediately after that where one of the creatures just keeps impaling its head.
The sounds it made fucking horrified me.
And I think that was when they first like started the flares and everything.
That's when they started throwing flares and stuff everywhere. And yeah, like it was the very first time I watched this movie, I was like, oh shit. Like as soon as that happened, I was like, oh nah.
Not only like was it smashing its head to a nail, it didn't just wear like a nail size hole through its head. I mean, that hole was
like
probably
a pipe.
like 3 inches wide or something. And like the way that the creature kind of like gets up and the camera pans from behind the creature and you see all the main characters through the creature's hole in its head.
That was such a good shot.
Dude, it was so cool. And I was just like, dude, this is fucked up, but it's really good.
So I got a question. So did the characters in this movie make smart choices? So this is kind of like a two-part question. So first, can anyone think of a character that, first off, maybe made some dumb decisions?
Yeah, Daniel should have just stayed right there and called the ambulance as a police officer, right? Or something. Or I don't know. It should have done something else. He rode with him for a very long time. And if he would have just not done this, none of this would have happened. So fuck you, Daniel.
Yeah, fuck you, Daniel.
So, and now to contrast that, do we think there's maybe any character that maybe made some really intelligent decisions?
Yeah, Daniel again, bro. Everything after was like, okay, Daniel, you've been in this before. You got it. You understand it.
You've watched horror movies before.
Yeah, he must have, because he was like, all right, I need a gun. Oh, there's other people here who are like, not scavengers, but they're like on that level. I need weapons to be able to like be formidable against them. Let's make sure that we pair up before we go anywhere. Like he's following, he's following a lot of good rules.
That's true. He was pretty smart about it.
Yeah.
I will say as well, the movie kind of shows Daniel at first, they insult him a lot and they make him seem kind of incompetent.
I made him a deadbeat, bro. This guy's a loser. He's a cop. They're like, you don't like this guy at all. And then they make you love him.
Literally, when they introduce him, he's like asleep in his patrol car. And then he's like, oh shit. Like he wakes up. I'm like, am I watching Super Troopers? But then like when shit goes down and like monsters start showing up, he actually like rushes into the room when there's monsters to like help people and like.
No, he's a good dude.
Yo, he is a really good dude. Was there anyone else that you would say maybe made, well, first off, for dumb choices, I would definitely have to say Allison. You just seen a big ass monster show up in the hospital, but you're going to go by yourself into like the dark, scary place just to like grab some medicine. Like, yo, what are you doing? Like, wait, go with a friend or something. Like, come on, what are you doing? But in terms of intelligent people, I would also have to say that
Kim
did not seem like she knew what she was doing. She seemed like she should have stayed home that day.
She should have. She absolutely fucking should have.
Kim should have called out, like, I should have called out
like
sick.
Kim didn't make necessarily smart or bad decisions, but I feel like she made real decisions based on like what her character
and she
was.
Sat her ass down and she lived.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Okay. I do have a question for both you guys. Do you guys have any characters that you think, outside of what we've already discussed, maybe made either some exceptionally smart or exceptionally stupid moves?
Sean made the best decisions.
Next to Daniel. Sean literally didn't have a choice in a lot of what was going on, but he actually like, he calms down Vincent when Vincent's about to like, go ham. He's like, no, chill. I mean, obviously he can't say it because he was attacked and like his vocal cords or his throat is like fucked up. He actually still has like the bandage on his throat, but he actually can't say anything.
And was probably the most well-spoken of anybody in the movie.
Shut the fuck up.
Real talk. Like,
for being honest, he was the goat of the movie. He did everything you could do right in the movie.
Yeah, you're right.
He did. He also was fearless, yo. Like when those cultists were showing up, he was like, nah. A cultist tried to stab him and this dude like tried to catch it with like the palm of his hand.
Yeah.
He tried to like catch the knife.
Yeah, he took
like,
that
what are you
right
doing?
to the hand too. They had to bandage up his hand. And then he just continued down to the basement fucking people up.
And literally the dude was like, that's nothing for him. He's been through worse. I was like, yo, what?
I want him on my team.
I do want him on my team.
That other guy was making bad decisions. Vincent.
Oh, Vincent? Yeah.
He was making good decisions, but the decision to be like angry in the middle of it made it so that they turned into bad decisions. Because like, yes, you should gather weapons. Like, yes, you should question people in the situation that he was in. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you should be cautious, but like also sitting there and stressing yourself out in the situation, like it's a dumb move. What are you doing?
Yeah, he picked too many fights.
I'm saying with everybody, and like he knows that the building's surrounded. He even said himself, "I fought my way in here." Like, what do you do? Then stop fighting the people who are in the building.
Right?
You fucking right.
So I also had a question. So the ending, I would be And now here's my word, remiss. Not long, but it is poignant. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you guys, what you guys think at the ending? First off, do you guys think Sean and Kim deserve that kind of happy ending? They deserve to get out?
I feel like
they get out.
Yeah.
I thought that Sean deserved it.
What does that mean?
Dude, Kim didn't do anything, bro.
But I feel like that's why it's perfect for her. Because like I said, she wasn't even supposed to fucking be there. And
You're right.
so I feel like it's like not necessarily that she deserved to live or deserved to die, but I feel like it just makes sense to me that she made it out. You know?
Nico, you expressed the same thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, you know, would you call her a final girl? Is she still a final girl if Sean's there?
I don't
I was
think
thinking
so.
about that too. I don't think so because she didn't do anything. I feel like the final girl has to like be a boss, or maybe not even a boss, but like do something at least, you know?
They have to like take action. Yeah. Perhaps. That's fair. I liked them. Even though Sean didn't speak, he had loads of clear charisma. The interaction between the two of them when they have their reunion at the end and just have this moment of relief after they both come at each other is phrasing great. And it's a really humbling scene all in all.
It is. And I guess to kind of switch, one thing I was thinking about, Nico, was, like, what is life and what is death in this movie? Because
you had a moment of inspiration there, did you?
Just a little bit. Because I will say this, and I'm going to ask everyone this, because what do you guys think about the end? Like, what the hell happened to Allison and Daniel? Did they both die? Are they now stuck in that dimension? Like, what's going on? Is that where Yugi sends people when they lose duels? Like, what's going on?
Fuck. That's the Shadow Realm.
As you can tell from the uniform, this is obviously the prequel to Stranger Things. They're in the upside down place. Duh. No, I'm kidding, dude. I thought that it was cool. I thought it was a nice ending for this movie because of the themes throughout. You know what I mean? Of like rebirth and everything.
Okay.
So Allison being there, I was like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And him being not as, because if you look at it, he's not as he got stabbed and like, shot and everything like that. And he's like good in the end of the movie. Like all his clothes are fine and just dirty.
Too, yeah,
right?
I think he's dead.
You think so? I think they're in that universe. I think they got transformed too, right?
I don't know how the fuck Allison would make it there though, bro. He literally chopped her to pieces.
She was down in the portals and everything. She was down in like the underground and whatnot. If you tie in their little world, I figured like you would then go to like that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I never thought about that. That's interesting.
So I had a kind of a similar thought. First off, so I think Daniel tackles the dude into the portal, and I think he does that because like I think once the dude's in the portal, he can't get back out without, I guess maybe somebody summoning him or some shit like that. But
because he split, like his skin split from his body and everything like that. Like a lot happened to that dude.
I guess he was working a lot of witchcraft or Obia or some shit because once he was gone, that whole sub basement started to collapse. So
when
I don't
Sean
know.
gets out, it's like that whole area just doesn't exist at all.
Yeah. And that's what they were kind of hinting at the start because they were talking over the walkie-talkie to navigate. And Kim was like, no, there shouldn't be anything there. But there was. So that was pretty interesting. Now, another kind of interesting note, I'm going to read you guys. I did some in-depth research here. And this is not from the wiki page. So one of the writers was apparently working like a floor below Guillermo del Toro, who was talking about think he was working on his At the Mouth of Madness or something like, I forget the exact name of the movie, but it's a movie that I don't know if it even came out or if it ever finished production, but he was talking about wanting to do Lovecraft in a new way, and Gillespie started thinking about it. So what do we think about, is this really a fresh take on cosmic horror, would you say? Because I noticed he didn't use any of the old kind of motifs or creatures. I think they drew inspiration from them, but this to me seemed pretty fresh and original. What did you guys think?
I agree. Insofar as I can see that there were definitely inspirations from some of the Cthulhu mythos, particularly I think the idea of like Shoggoths was utilized a lot, particularly with that big old baby monster at the end there. And I really like that they did have their own take on it, sort of that it almost seemed like these were mutations of people and they were like constructed abominations as opposed to like some sort of eldritch race perhaps. And that's like, not that that's bad because that could also be what's going on. It's cosmic horror. You don't really know, but I like the direction they went with it.
All right. Ish, what'd you think?
I don't know. I don't know like the details, you know what I mean, of cosmic horror. But from what I understand, this fits, I guess, the motif, like that genre of horror. But also like within it, I don't know. I'm trying not to use the same words, but it's fresh, it's new, it's original. It felt like I hadn't seen anything like it before. I've seen like a couple of cosmic horror films, but nothing like this before. Like I think I've seen like Cabin in the Woods. Like that's it. Like I don't know. Like I've never seen anything like super duper Lovecraftian or anything like that. But like this was like something where I was like, wow. And especially because you guys mentioned it like I think like 5-10 minutes ago, and I had to like read up on it. This is definitely fits the motif of it. Definitely fits into that like genre of horror. And judging from the titles that I've seen as kind of examples of it, definitely fresh.
So, Dan, before you answer, I'm going to frame your answer up with there's a specific line the doctor comes with where he said, so the nurse that transformed into a monster, he tells Daniel, he says, yeah, I tried to show her, but she just couldn't take it. And that's potentially what led to her transformation. So do you think that plays into it and that kind of fulfills that role a little bit?
I mean, definitely. One thing that I really like about this movie is I feel like it shows us more than a lot of cosmic horror movies do.
Definitely.
And things, but still leaves you questioning a lot of shit.
Each monster gives you a question, yeah.
Yeah, and like a lot of times things are so unfathomable. I can never say that word.
Unfathomable.
But so much so that, it just drives people crazy. And a lot of cosmic horror is about the unknown and what we don't know and can't comprehend. But this movie, you see all these monsters and you see a lot of this stuff, but it's still so big that we don't know. And there's still so many unanswered questions, like the cultists. We don't know who the cultists are. We don't know anything about them. Like, they're just there. And there's zero explanation as to why or how they're there. There's like a siren, I think, that attracts them. But like, who knows where that horn came from, or like, and the movie doesn't even like try to explain it, which is good, I think. And sort of like that extra dimension is obviously very cosmic horror related. And the whole ending, like, there's so much unexplained. But even with all the unexplained stuff, I still feel like this movie shows us more than most cosmic horror does. And I think that's really, really cool.
Agreed.
I think one reason for that and how they succeeded at that was the kind of, I guess the scale of it was, I wouldn't say like low scale, but it was literally
Smaller.
That dude. Yeah, that guy was a cult leader. Powell was a cult leader who had attained power and blessings, but he was still a human. And like, I feel like because of that, because he was a human, they were able to show everything. Because think about it. Let's say they were fighting, like an elder god or something like Cthulhu. Like, dudes ain't going to pick up shotguns and kill Cthulhu. That's just not going to happen.
We even saw that too when they were in the basement. Like, we go back to the same scene, but y'all, a lot happened in this scene. All right. when one of the monsters or something was floating towards them, and like the breaks in sound were happening, and it was like, oh, it's in your mind or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like kind of tied into the same thing to me. Like whenever they saw that, they were like, oh crap, what are we supposed to do? They didn't shoot it. They've been shooting everything this whole freaking movie. All right, they just watched it just like go down on this dude. Not go down. They watched it like run down on this dude and just like look him in the eye, and that was about it. Like, it was craziness. They didn't shoot it. They didn't do nothing. They didn't tackle it. They'd been stabbing, shooting, hacking stuff to pieces for like an hour, and they were like, "We can't do it. I don't know what this is. This is like a Pokemon or something. I don't know what to do."
Wow. That puts a new twist on that for sure. So,
Bruh.
I'm going to go ahead and we're going to break out now to the infamous section. And this time we have I guess we have a guest along for the ride. So hopefully, Nico doesn't kill me off in this one. But
I'm sure.
Bro, I already did in the opening.
What would you do? True. But what would you do in the situation? So we're gonna say it's like this. We're gonna switch it up here because I don't think any of us are La Policia, so to speak. So let's just say maybe, Dan, it's actually before 8 o'clock, so we can go to the hospital.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know. Let's say, for example, Nico, you're the most likely one. Nico just like drops from some unknown condition. Secretly,
yeah, that's fair.
it was just
That's
like he accidentally had it had a shrimp.
I had COVID-20.
Who knows, bro? demonetized. But no, so now basically we all got to go to this hospital. Nico goes over there. He's fine. He's like, bro, I just needed an allergy shot. So we're all just chilling out. And all of a sudden a cop rushes in with this one dude. We hear screams and a monster shows up and we're in the hospital. So we look around and maybe Dan's like, bro, we got to get the fuck out of here. We look outside and you see nothing but cultists. Meanwhile, and the movie starts to play out. Like the two guys rush in with rifles and we're just chilling there in the waiting room. And all of a sudden the monster breaks out. What would you do starting from there? Would you help them fight the monster? Would you just like hide in a corner? What would you do? I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Ish. Would you help these dudes fight off monsters? Would you join up?
I would immediately go and find like wherever they would go to dress up, you know what I mean? Like in their scrubs and their coats and everything.
Yeah.
I'd get like 2 or 3 lab coats and then a big Sharpie and draw a triangle on the coat. All right. And then I would slowly make my way into like the cultist line and then just like start walking backwards.
Like the Homer Simpson joint?
I get a knife. I'd be like, I'm with y'all. Like, let's
God
go.
fucking damn it.
That's a pretty good plan, actually.
That's incredible.
So Ish has exfiltrated our ranks and he's would you go get help?
I'm living to the end of this movie, Justin, is what I'm doing.
Would you go get help?
Dude, honestly, following movie rules, I feel like I'd be like, I have to. If I'm smart enough and cool and collected enough to come up with this grand scheme in order to get out and it works, I have to save those people. I have to tell somebody, we have to get people down there. And I also haven't found out about any of the stuff going on inside. So I don't know that Powell's in on it. So I don't know that there's other people in on it.
Mm.
So, I mean, that would be like the sequel. You see what I'm saying?
Oh.
I guess that might also help you seem less crazy to the police. Like you're not going to call them and be like, yo, like the doctor died, but he came back to life. Like you'd be like, yo, it has some.
I would say one crazy thing. Like there's a monster there. But like if I'm telling the whole story, I'm going to tell them that like some guy who was on drugs or something came to the hospital. So they'd be like, oh, maybe it was just like some big dude who was at the hospital on drugs. I feel like they take it a little bit more seriously.
All right. So no one else can take that idea. That was Ish's idea. So we're going to go ahead with a worthy contender. Dan, would you fight it out like a man? Would you hide like a little bitch? What are you about to do?
I would fight the monster and then immediately leave. Like,
what about the cultists blocking you?
Bro, those are humans. We just killed a fucking monster, bro. Like, we have shotgun, we have pistol, and we have some like axes. I will like jump in the car and run these dudes down and get the fuck out.
Yep.
That's what I would do. I'll take my chances out there.
There is an element of betrayal as well. Nico, what would you do? This isn't like a segue to you.
Bro, I'm in a fucking hospital. Like, I'm the one who's the patient. You're the one who placed me in the hospital. And then, motherfucker, you can't be like, Nico, what would you do? I have an IV in me now.
Listen, I also saved your life in this story as well. Backstory. I saved your life too because I recognized your symptoms. So I quickly, kept your knee above your head level just to make sure
My what?
Your knee.
My knee.
Yeah.
Above my head.
I heard that's good for allergies, bro. Try it sometime. But no, so I will say, what would you do? Would you try and run away with Dan? Take your odds with the cult? You would.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like I could either go with Ish or I could go with Dan. I'm a charismatic motherfucker, so like I can get some culty vibes going on if I need to.
This man has his own choose your own adventure book over here.
Yeah, don't even worry about it, bro. Don't even worry about it.
I'm gonna keep it honest with you. I would not take my chances with the cult just because it's dark outside.
I mean, I'd sooner leave than that. That would be more of like a last resort type thing.
These dudes are out here with knives. I don't know about this, but like a monster. Like when you take a look at this monster, right? It's like, okay, I see you.
Look at this monster graph.
But I'm saying, like they were over here like fighting it off with axes. They got guns, they got axes, they got rubbing alcohol to make Molotovs. Like they're doing all this. I'm like, you know what? Here's what we'll do. I'll come with you guys, but I'll stand in the back. So, like whatever monster has to come through and fuck him up first is gonna do that. And then I'll be like, oh no, and I like throw the Molotovs and like hit him with the fire axe and all that. I'll tell you what though, if
Fire Emblem.
No, listen, if I could get like access to a cutlass, yo, game over, son. I'm taking them. I'm taking them all out. I'm taking them all out. I got Dr. Powell. I got
Trini
everybody.
Void.
I got everyone. I got everyone coming with that.
Everyone in the hospital is playing Resident Evil, and Justin's playing Sea of Thieves. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
You did bring up a good point, though. The confidence that seeing them bring down the monster must have put in these people. Allison, after this point, was just like, "Oh, I'm Superwoman now."
She was a bad bitch in that moment.
Until the doctor came with that hip check. Like she thought she was skating on like, she's like, yeah, man, it's easy. They just fucked up this monster.
Bitch who got fucked up by a stealth check gone bad. It happens.
You know what happened, man? It literally was. She was like, I got next. Like these dudes could do it. Yo, me too.
Fucking bet.
He was like, okay, he had his hero moment.
Fuck y'all. Get mine.
Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't work out too well for her. She did get kidnapped.
In the end, she ended up transcending life and death. So it's okay. It's all right.
True.
I guess.
Yeah, you're right.
I guess. But locked out for sure in this unknown realm. So, and speaking of that, let's go ahead right now and break loose real quick to what would you say? I know there's a lot of cool shit happening in this movie, Dan, but what would you say is your favorite scene? Like your absolute favorite scene? What is it in this movie? We might have already talked about it, but what is it?
It has to be that whole basement scene. Like from the moment you see,
you can't pick the whole basement scene. It's too good and it's too much.
The whole
Pick
fucking
one.
basement scene.
Oh my God.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm about to do the same thing. So go for it.
All right.
Speak your fucking truth, Dan. Speak your fucking truth.
I will. From the moment, the first thing, the one that like hits its head against the nail, the hole in the head we mentioned.
Yeah.
From that to like all the way, you know what? Fuck it. Pretty much to the end of the movie from there. Like, yeah. I know that's a long ass scene because that's like 40 minutes. That's like half
the entire movie, last third is.
Yeah, it's
really good.
It's so fucking good. But if I have to be a little more specific, that whole scene when they're in the one room in the basement with all the abominations and the whole thing is like all red colored and shit. That scene has to be probably my one favorite. But I want to say the whole like second half or so of the movie.
So, all right, yo, that makes perfect sense. Ish, is there another scene in that basement that you really liked aside from that one?
The basement. Oh,
why did you phrase that so suspect?
Because it's gonna come from the basement scene still too.
Yeah.
But you are right. You are right. Like Dan is right. Like the whole last like third of that movie was amazing, especially from the build up that they had in the beginning of it. So I'll pick. Can I pick two?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
The one where he's talking to Allison and she's on the table. Ooh. And it's like cutting in between stuff. Yeah. I love that scene. And like you can't see his face, you know what I mean? Because he's just been talking, but they're like slowly alluding to the fact that this guy has like really messed up something.
Yeah, you know.
And you see like his skin in the thing and everything. You're like, oh. He's like, I did it to myself. And I was like, what do you mean you did it to yourself? And he turns and he has no face. That was a great scene. The scene inside of the basement where you could see the portal opening. I want to say like the first time whenever he's opening it, that was just amazing. Like, cause I like whenever it's so hard to get darkness right in a movie because why would you make your movie dark? You know what I mean? Like you're trying to see it, but they did it amazing. And then the way that they showed light creeping into the dark. Cause if you've ever been in darkness, you're human, you've been in darkness before. It's not like that. It's not like there's this like gray kind of light over everything unless the window's open and the moon is shining through. You know what I mean?
It's dark.
Yeah, you have to suspend your belief and be like, it's pitch black in this room. Like, you know, like they can't see anything. Like they're literally scared to hell. The only thing they can see is the slight little glow of that triangle behind them. And when it opens up and it's like filled with light and everything, and you see the two cultists on the side, it was just, I don't know. That was a great scene. It always like just sticks with me seeing it, and it's from the poster. So
that's a really good point, actually. And you know what? It's true. And I've mentioned this before on other podcasts. Like, yeah, people have been in darkness before, but I mean, like, and I have this, this little bit of advantage. There are times where, like, more so than like sometimes here in the States, you might not have a light on in the room, so you got to fumble around in the darkness for like a couple seconds to turn on the light. But I mean, like, I've been, like I've told Dan and Nico before, like, I've been in Trinidad where, like, yo, it is dark and there is no light aside from like the light that I have on me. So if that shit is not working, it is pitch black.
Pitch black. I know exactly. Same in Jamaica, bro.
Yo, exactly. Like, it is dark. It is dark.
If you're in a certain place, you might not even have streetlights outside, really.
Exactly. So yeah, I definitely understand what you're talking about with the lighting there. Nico, what was your favorite scene? And if you stay in the basement, you're going to have some fun. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I actually already talked about it earlier. It's the scene where we have the reunion of the husband and wife with Daniel and Allison, and we see the sort of like shifting perspectives of Allison seeing what appears to be a real world, and then Daniel's perspective where things are, more eldritch and fucked up. And then it's just such a great shot, because when you get to the outside of the room and you just see his silhouette swinging down the axe, the window is this beautiful like neon green, the halls are just decrepit, and then there's these flashes of red that pop up, and it's another one of the scenes where it's really quiet, and it is just like that itself reminds the viewer that, like, even though this is cosmic horror, there is still a very human aspect to it, and I just loved that.
True, I respect that, but that scene still happened in the basement, right?
Fuck me, all right.
You pick the next scene.
God damn it.
So I will say, first off, again, you guys are so right about this movie. Like, the last third of this movie is literal. Your eyes are stuck to this screen. I will also have to echo Ish and Dan's point of view with, like, when they first get down to the basement and all the shit starts attacking him is badass. But I also like the scene where Daniel makes it all the way through and he's in the big room now. And Powell is kind of talking to him. Dr. Powell's talking to him about like everything that he's doing. The pregnant patient shows up. I think her name was Molly. And she literally gives birth to that abomination. And her fucking like midsection just rips open.
Oh,
and blood just pours out, and that shit just comes out.
Abomination comes out like just not even accidentally, but like just steps on somebody's head and just crushes it.
Yeah,
just
crushes it. Like
everybody being trapped. I shouldn't laugh, but that scene was not that wasn't a horror scene. That was a not so funny scene.
Yo, swear to God, man, like that shit was class. And I will say it was just cool because at that point in time, also like he looks like all hope is lost. But then Vincent and Sean show up to like, like bust caps. Like they're like, yo, what did you think was gonna happen? And they came through. And so I respected that. But also I will say for the podcast, another scene that we all really liked was when they first get to the hospital, because so much happens. They get to the hospital, the nurse loses her mind, cuts off her face, stabs a dude. He shoots her. Another cop shows up. These two vigilantes show up. The cult shows up. The
pacing's incredible.
Yeah, like everything happens. And this movie does not overstay its welcome. It never drags. It drags you along for a ride, but it doesn't like take too long. But speaking of, are there any criticisms that you guys might have of this movie? Big or small, I'll lead. So for me, I would probably have to say, and this isn't even necessarily like a major criticism of the movie because I love this movie, but I would say that I would have liked to see what they could have done if they'd had a bigger budget. And I don't mean to call the movie like low budget or anything like that, but there were one or two moments, particularly like with the big child monster that comes out of the woman at the end, where sometimes a couple of the framing shots of it, there was one or two shots where I was like, oh, like I bet you if they had a little more money, they could have done like this improvement to this costume or this improvement to that. I guess less of a criticism and more of a room for improvement. If they had a bigger budget, I bet you this would have blown my mind even more than it already had. But that's what I got. Ish, is there anything you want to say in terms of like something you might want to fix about the movie or improve it?
I honestly don't have much. Like, I guess usual horror movie gripes, just like some parts of the dialogue are a little bit kind of like But
True.
Everything, honestly, this is like one of the best horror movies I've ever seen. I stand by it. Like, I don't have any criticisms for it. Like, I don't know.
Okay.
If at all, honestly, it's just that thing. Like, really, dialogue.
We're gonna go ahead and hit Nico next. Nico, any thoughts from you?
I genuinely don't have any criticisms for this one. I just love this movie.
All right, Dan, swing in with one.
My only one criticism, and it's super small, is those scenes where they, like at the end when Daniel and Allison are in sort of that other dimension, they don't seem like they belong there. Like it very much seems green screened, which I mean, I'm sure it is, but like could be intentional. I don't know, because of also just the extra dimension thing. But I feel like that when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, that was one of the probably the only times in the movie that I was like, damn, this isn't real. Like everything else, all the crazy monsters seem so real. And this part seems kind of took me out of it a little bit. But to me, honestly, that's a very minor thing. I thought the rest of the movie was just amazing.
All right, so I'll go ahead right now and tell you all, this movie didn't review very well with audiences.
Fuck them.
True. So we're going to go ahead and tell you the Rotten Tomatoes of it. So the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, this is sitting at a 78%. And the audience score is sitting at a 46, that's harsh.
Wow.
That's harsh. So, Ish, so we're going to go ahead and assign this movie a personal rating from ourselves out of 100, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go ahead and lead with you, Dan. What would you give this movie?
95? I fuck heavy with this movie.
All right. Nico, what would you give it?
If you're expecting me to give this anything other than 100, you've lost your goddamn mind.
Ooh.
You gave this 100?
Yeah.
Wow. Ish, what would you give this movie out of 100, bro?
All right, so this is gonna sound like I don't like the movie, right? But for me, this is a very high score, an 85, maybe like an 87.
There we go. Ish, a man after my own heart. So yeah, I give this movie a 93.
That's fair. I can see that's fair.
So that's where I'm at. I just think this is a really good movie. So Ish, there's one more thing we do here. So we go around and we say, would you recommend this movie to a friend, right? Which you did. You recommended it to us. But also, after we all say whether or not we'd recommend it, if it's unanimous, then we ask if this movie would get your personal golden seal of approval. So I want you to think about kind of the best horror movies you've watched, like the top tier, ones that you without a doubt enjoy. You could pop that joint on at any point in time, watch it, and it's a good experience. Does this attain that? So first, we're going to start with the recommendations. Would you recommend this movie to a friend? Dan?
Heck yeah, of course.
Nico?
No. The fuck, yes.
Ish?
Yeah, of course. This movie is great.
I would as well. So next, would this movie get your golden seal of approval, Dan?
Absolutely.
Nico?
For fucking sure.
Ish?
Oh yeah.
Me too. The Void gets the golden seal of approval from Don't Open That Door. So yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, I mean, you've definitely been told a lot about it, but it's still well worth a watch. Definitely go check that shit out.
The cast also, I don't know if we mentioned, like some of the casts in here, I didn't even realize when I first watched it. These people have been in things that I've seen, like significant roles and things that I've seen.
Yeah. Ellen Wong was in Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, dude. And then the dude, as soon as I saw his face, I was like, Stewart! From he's that one, was he Rolf or whatever from Letterkenny? Evan, dude, I wish I remembered his name. Yeah, Evan something. He played James. He played the original hurt guy who went to the hospital.
So, real quick, Nico or Dan, do you guys have anything you want to say about this movie as kind of like a closing note?
No.
Yeah, no, this movie's incredible. Go watch it like right fucking now.
If you like what you've heard here, we're, on Twitter and Instagram, we're at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook at Don't Open That Door. Ish, where can the people find you, man? If they want to, they want to catch more Ish Walker, what can they do?
I Twitch occasionally. Twitch TV at King Ish Walker. So find me on there. I don't have a Twitter or any of this other stuff. I have an Instagram though. Ishtacular, ISHTACULAR.
All right, man. You heard it from the man himself. So that's been it from Don't Open That Door. As always, ladies and gents, in these trying times, go ahead and keep yourself safe. Watch The Void if you haven't. And oh yeah, please, ladies and gents, don't open that door. Have a nice night.